my memoir, and today I'm adding something to the show, which is the first blog on writing and how to self-publish your ebook, print book, audiobook. I'm going to take you all the way through the process from why write to how to self-publish. And um, that is going to happen after I read my story from my memoir, Incandescence, Rising Above Darkness, and share a couple pieces of art that are in the book. Most of you know, I'm assuming that the book has 52 true life stories and 68 pieces of my art as meditations between the stories, not necessarily any literal connection to the story, but just a moment to take a deep breath and absorb the story you've just heard, or a moment of respite in life. So for me, that's what art is. Creative reverie is a healing, life-enhancing place I want to share with everybody. It's a way to heal ourselves and enhance our lives and the lives of others and walk lightly on the planet. So I'm all about it. So that's why the art is in my book. And so we're going to first thank you for being here and thank the Minnesota State Arts Board for giving me this grant to do this project. I'm so grateful. It has challenged me to get in front of the camera, and I'm so gratified doing it. I may not have done it without getting the grant, or may not have done it this soon, because I'm actually a contemplative by nature. Some people call that an introvert. But I love sharing with you, and I love connecting virtually, and the economical and ecological way that the internet allows us to connect with each other. So I'm so grateful that this happened and you're here. And the first story, the story I'm going to read today is chapter 36, and it is called Woman Who Dreamt She Was Sleeping But Is Really Light Dancing. On a vision quest, I climbed up the tallest hill in the high desert to fast on top of it in solitude for 3 days. I brought only water, matches, a teacup, a sleeping bag, a plastic tarp, rope, a hammock, toilet paper, a pencil, a journal, and a few power bars just in case. The first night, I found a sheltered spot not far from the top and leveled the earth under the branches. I stretched the rope between the trees and put the plastic over it and the sleeping bag under it. I built a small fire and heated water in the teacup. I sat close to the fire thinking about the only thing I knew I wanted to do on my vision quest. I wanted to let go all sadness and struggle. So I decided I would write down everything I felt hurt by and everyone who disappointed me. Many things brought up tears with painful memories, which I let run their natural course. It took hours. The only certainty I had was I wanted to be thorough, with nothing important left off the list. My list grew as the day passed, with nothing to distract me from feeling each hurt. Drinking my warm water was comforting and satisfying. As I walked away from my camp to relieve my bladder, I experienced the only loneliness I felt during my vision quest. While I was crouching, I said out loud, "I need a friend." Just then, a tiny iridescent hummingbird appeared right in front of my face, hovering in midair. It looked into my eyes with no fear, and I looked into its eyes with great gratitude. It stayed until I stood up, then it flew a foot away and came back and looked me in the eyes again. I said, "Thank you, little friend. I'm good now." And it flew away. I giggled and returned to the fire. Sitting on the soft earth, I finished my writing. I decided to read the list out loud and let nature surround me as a sacred witness. Crumpling the sheets of paper, I put them in the fire and they ignited. As they burned, I said a spontaneous prayer. Let the fire purify these hurt feelings. Let the wind spread it so far there is no heat left in them anymore. Just as I said this, I watched my perfectly level teacup lift straight up off the ground and move sideways until it was over the center of the fire. Then it turned upside down, extinguishing the fire. I laughed and got into my sleeping bag, pulled it up under my chin, and slept peacefully. On the morning of the third day, I moved to the top of the tallest hill. There, I collected fallen branches for a big fire. I wanted to keep warm and awake through the night on that last night. I gathered stones for my vision quest circle to enter before the sun went down, knowing I wanted to stay in it until the sun came up again. After I put enough fallen branches next to the stones to keep my fire going through the night, I strung up my hammock and laid in it for the rest of the day. Having not eaten for 3 days and knowing I wanted to stay awake all night, I decided to move as little as possible. I felt comfortable with the big, empty spaces between my thoughts, watching the gray clouds dance around the sky all day. It occurred to me late in the day that I had not asked for my Vision Quest name yet. So for the first time since I asked for a friend and thanked the hummingbird, I spoke. "What is my name?" Immediately, a voice came into my head and said, "Woman who dreamt she was sleeping but is really light dancing." I laughed long and loud at my name and thought, of course, I could not have a name like Babbling Brook, Skipping Deer, or Soaring Crane. Then I had a serious thought, wondering if it was really my name. I decided to say it out loud to find out. I said, "Woman who dreamt she was sleeping, but is really..." Just then, the clouds parted for the first time all day as I said, "light dancing," and the sun shone directly on my face as I reclined in the hammock, and I knew it was my name. As dusk gathered around me, I placed the stones in a circle as I named each stone for the person it represented. The last 2 stones represented me and me observing myself, which I placed last from inside the circle, and I would stay in until dawn. I started a small fire and placed the wood where I could reach it from my sleeping bag. As the darkness increased, so did the stars. I was amazed at the number of stars I could see as I watched the sky all night. Then the shooting stars began. I thought the reason I saw so many shooting stars was because I had not watched the sky until dawn in the high desert before. Later, I was told it was a meteor shower. Wishing on every single one of them kept me busy. I started with huge wishes: world peace, end to hunger, pollution, racism, sexism, elitism, ageism, and illnesses. Then I wished that everyone would find a sense of purpose, love, and joy. As the stars kept shooting, I had to wish as fast as I could, and I started wishing for things for myself: to be able to spin 13 times on skates, and to get my art published, to keep up With the pace of the streaking lights in the sky, my wishing had to become a stream of consciousness. In an attempt to stay awake, I laid my head on the end of a stick, with the other end in the fire. It did keep me awake, not wanting to fall into the flames. It was difficult for the first few hours, but then energy came into me and kept me alert without effort. I wondered why I had not ever chosen to simply observe the night pass into the day in silence before. After sunrise, picking up the last stone, I left the circle the same way I had come into it. The stones were everyone I had discovered, abandoned, tormented, pleased, dismissed, accepted, feared, respected, teased, taught, learned from, lost, loved, all of my ancestors and angels. There, on a high desert plateau, those stones had watched over the valleys and peaks for eons. I left them there to continue their vigil without me. I walked away weightless, free of blame, resentment, anger, or fear. I had set every burden down. Every doubt had slipped away. Every concern had evaporated. I was empty. I was full. I understood what was essential. It was not good to have a mother who lived compassion, nor was it bad to have a father who lived revenge. I was just born into the time and place I was born into, and what matters is what I do with it. I set down judgments, hopes, fears, expectations, burdens, desires, disappointments, and triumphs. My struggles are not interesting. Only how I transform them matters. Being born human is an opportunity. Let me not squander it. Empty of hurt, full of hope, I remove the last stone and set it aside to leave the circle. I felt like a woman who dreamt she was sleeping, but is really like dancing down the hill back to my life. That's Bodhi, my son, in case you're new to this and you haven't seen this before. He asked me to work with him and named us Mother-Son Productions, and he's a storyteller. His stories are fiction. His live read is at 4 on Saturdays. So based on a fictional reimagining of Duluth, Minnesota on Lake Superior where we live. So, tune back in to see that. That's a whole nother experience. Usually, well, I'd like to share the art that's before and after the story, and then I'm going to take an unusual turn before getting to questions at the end. So, Bodhi, if you could bring over the pieces of art.
Absolutely.
These will be prints of my originals, are usually big. You can see some of them. Which one do you want
first?
It doesn't matter. This is called Yellow Light in Rust Woods, and it is, the original is a watercolor, and this is an imprint we do here at the Emerald Lady in our studio. Bodhi is very technical and has learned how to make these beautiful clay prints that are museum quality. You look like Vanna White for a second there.
I've just got to kneel down a little bit.
Yeah, so these are on acid-free paper, and the inks are acid-free, the backing and the
Would you like to hold this one while I get the other one?
Sure, and even the acetate they come in to protect them is acid-free, so you can leave them in there as long as you need to before framing them. This is called Dancing Lines. You might want to get that one close because it's so subtle. And that's the original is colored pencil, and it's It is, yeah, my skate dancing partner of many years came to one of my exhibitions and he didn't know what this was named, and this was the piece of art he liked the best, and it's named The Tango from the Dancing Line series. I think that's pretty interesting synchronicity.
So you can find the prints on clarecooley.com/shop.
The web store that Bodhi made for me, and they're limited edition, numbered and signed. They come with a certificate of authenticity. That's the large size we do here. We also do mediums and small. So now I'm going to read the first blog post. There's going to be one every day for the next 10 days on basically the first one today is going to be why write, and it's going to go all the way through why write, what to write, all the way to how to self-publish a audiobook, a ebook, a print version, how to design it. Every step is going to be in these 10 blog posts starting today. So let's go for the first one, and then we'll have some time for questions after. And once again, this is part of the grant I was awarded by the Minnesota State Arts Board. So this first one is called Why Write? There are as many reasons to write as there are people who write. We can write for enjoyment, self-discovery, healing, learning, inspiration, information, entertainment, service to others, connection with others, documenting events, immortalizing people, holding someone accountable, and just to feel purpose and fulfillment. I began writing to heal myself. The writing was a way to get it out of my head and onto paper, then to expand myself by reflecting on it. When I am ready, I share stories that I believe can empower, inspire, or inform others. I give myself permission to keep some stories private until I heal from those events. It is our choice when and if we share any of our writing. Writing my collection of short stories from my life was motivated by all the people who told me hearing my stories helped them and could help others. I write to express my feelings, stimulating my immune system. Reflecting on it allows me to process, get clear, and heal. Writing expands me, and sharing it is deeply fulfilling. One way to begin writing is to choose something we are curious about and play with words like a child exploring, free of judgments. For example, I chose a spontaneous exploration of imagination in words below. This is writing about writing. Writing can make us into human kintsugi, the Japanese art form of repairing shattered pottery with golden joinery. The page can be a place to receive our truth, helping to put us back together again, giving us more character and individuality, and making us more beautiful than before we were broken. Writing can be like an autumn wind removing leaves to reveal the skeletal structure of our forest. Writing can be like a volcanic eruption that throws debris and spews toxic gases, which then transform into fertile soil. Writing can be like cleansing rain that clears confusion and clutter and collects around disappointment. Writing can be like a gale force wind that rips away all not firmly grounded, leaving the essential truth. Writing can be recording subtle things before fragile feelings evaporate like mist. Writing can be waves of tender feelings washed up on the shore of self. Writing can be sharing authentic places with people we may never meet. Writing can be like telling our truth to a stranger without drinking so we remember it. Writing can be like going to therapy without an appointment or cost other than our time. We may not know why we write until after we write it. Putting it down, stepping back, and getting perspective may be necessary to truly hear the words. Sometimes sharing the writing with someone else can allow us to hear it more deeply. It isn't necessary to know why or even what we want to write to begin writing. Sometimes we won't know what we have to say until after we say it. We may discover what we have to say by writing it, stepping back, and reading it later. By following our instinct to write, we may discover things we didn't know we felt, thought, or knew. We may have to write for a time, maybe a long time, before we uncover what we are trying to say. Our feelings can be submerged so deeply that they are hidden from us until we excavate them by writing. Explore yourself and uncover hidden treasures. It is a good use of your time to be curious about yourself. Coming to know your own closest and most constant companion, yourself, is worth the investment of your energy to do so. Investing in a writing project is an act of faith in your self-worth. I began writing to have someone to talk to. The blank pages became my trusted friend. Writing is a way to record feelings, thoughts, and events. It allowed me to recall them later accurately and comprehensively. Writing became a way to process complicated things, a way to set down difficult feelings, walk away, and begin healing. Writing can be a way to express any and all hurts safely. Then my writing evolved into a way to share what I've learned to help others, which helps me. Writing is believing in yourself. It is self-nourishing. Offering it to help others is gratifying. So I want to show you, and maybe you can see it, or maybe Bodhi's going to pan down.
The camera.
I got out this collection of my writing over the years. I started writing, I actually have a poem that I made into a little, I didn't get that out for this, but I will at some point. I think 12, 14 years old. Before, I never read a book, which didn't happen until I was 21, because as most of you know by now, I had a very unusual upbringing, not really attending school since I was 7. So this is, these are my first friends. I was too shy. I didn't really have a conversation with other people other than my mother, and mostly that was not verbal, until I was 14. So I started writing, and that was my first friend. And here's poetry and book ideas and creativity coaching and the creativity show, and there's stories and long stories and class projects and all about the cranes and dreams and letters and responses and quotes. So there's all kinds of different things here, and these are some of my oldest writing in journals, and some I covered. I made my own little fabric covers for them, and some even have a little place for the pen to go into it. And this is when I traveled by myself with a bag that had a bamboo flute, a journal, and a pencil that attached to that. Now this is a journal I painted myself. So creativity can be a companion, a healing place, a life-enhancing place, and so I have referred to myself as a born-again artist because art, creative reverie, being in the creative process saved me and has given me a safe place through all of the adversity in my life, and I want to share that with others. So I want to promote it for all the good it does the individual, the community, and the environment, because the more we create instead of consume, the lighter we walk on the planet. So so there we go. So here's my first published, a poet asked me if they could use my art for the cover of their book, Luis Garcia. And here's my book of cranes, which
Contact us if you want the Book of Cranes.
yes, and it's an accordion book printed on both sides, and there it is, both sides across the top of the mantle. And then I self-published my stationery with cranes, which is a box set that has 10 seals and cards and envelopes in this. So I love sharing my love of nature, my respect for living in harmony with nature and each other through my art. I think it's my love of creativity and my respect and admiration for nature is kind of what I'm all about. So now let's move to some questions. Some were sent in before this live read, and some will probably sent in during the live read. So Bodhi's going to tell me what questions people are asking.
Sure. Well, I'll go in order. First, Erica Bree said lovely.
Thank you, Erica. It's so nice to know you're out there, far away across the world, and we are connected this way. And I just love that the internet allows this kind of intimate virtual visit while being so ecological and economical with our time and the resources on the planet. So
Great.
love knowing you're there.
Ardell said, wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And we will go to, then we've got some questions that came via email. Betty, Ross said, how did you come up with the ritual of writing and burning the things that people did that hurt you? You might want to explain what that is for people just joining.
Yes, well, on my vision quest, the only thing I knew before it happened was that I wanted to let go of any sadness, any disappointment, any fear or hurt. So the ritual of writing down the things that hurt me and the people I felt disappointed by, and then burning it, was very spontaneous. It helped me be thorough, which I thought I really want to be, and I didn't want to say them and then keep repeating them, so that I made sure I didn't forget one. So write him down, give it my full attention, move on to the next one, and when I felt the list was complete, then I thought, well, now what? And there was my little fire keeping me warm, and I thought, well, there you go. Turn it to ash. And that it's really interesting how well it worked. There are many things that I wrote on that list that I've completely forgotten. And that's because I know how long the list was, and I can't remember a lot of the things that were on it. So it worked. That's all I can say. It was very purifying.
while you were reading, you got a question about the story. Betty asked, were you afraid of predators, mountain lions, being alone in the wilderness?
I was not afraid. I did do some things that I felt were intelligent that allowed me not to be afraid. One of the things I did was all the way around my sleeping area, I sprinkled small branches so that no animal could cross them without snapping some of these small branches, and dry leaves so that hopefully the snapping would awaken me. And I did have long, sharp, pointy sticks I found on either side of me in my sleeping area. And that was enough for me to feel like I wasn't easy prey. And I also had no food to attract the smells of food to attract critters. So I did feel very comfortable and safe. But I do think, we always have to deal with our environments, and animals are predictable. People aren't. So I actually often in my life have felt much safer in natural settings than I do among my own species, because animals, are never vindictive. They don't ever, they don't kill for pleasure. If you smell like food because you've got a bunch of food, especially if it's fatty and aromatic, you could be, at risk. But they're predictable, so predict what they want. They want to eat, they want to survive, and don't be food. That's.
Bernie asked, what do you think really happened with your teacup?
I was there, not altered by any, that was the first day of the fast, so I wasn't in any extreme fasting, hallucinating state. There were no drugs or alcohol involved. So I do not have an explanation, but I saw it happen, and I was not exhausted or any explanation for hallucinating doesn't work for me. It's not logical that I was hallucinating. I do not have a logical explanation for how this little metal teacup would go like this right over the fire when I'm saying, let this fire and purify these hurts and let the wind spread it across the universe. And right at the end, this happens. I do not have an explanation. I did witness it, and I can't say that I believe in magic. I can't say that I believe in telekinesis, like my mind moved it, but I saw it. It happened. And I don't need to convince anyone else because it's not their experience. But I also I'm not giving in to any fear of being judged by others, including it in the story. It's an important part of the story, so I included it. I accept it without explanation. So what do I think happened? I don't know.
Nice. Okay. Well, this goes back to that same question. Lou, how do you explain the experiences you have had that seem mythical or magic?
Well, like I said, I don't really believe in magic, or even though I've had what other people call psychic experiences, I don't necessarily believe in psychicness. I do think that we have a very small let's say the whole universe of understanding is this big, we're as humans have a sliver of that we're capable of. Like, how does time work? So if the faster we go in space, the slower time works. So there's so much that we don't know. And I think when we're really open and not critical and not judgmental and not afraid to experience things we cannot explain, we're more likely to experience things we cannot explain. And I'm okay with that. I'm all right not knowing how I've known some things that I don't have an explanation for, or how I've had some dreams that, by all indication, were things that had not yet happened, or the teacup. I'm okay with not knowing the answer to how these things happen, but trusting that in my sober, straight, well-rested mind, I witnessed them. And that's good enough for me. And I don't need to convince anyone else. I'm not trying to talk anyone into anything. And I don't need anyone else to believe it. It's all right, but it's what happened, and I'm very committed to trying to share the truth. So that's that.
Joe, does sharing them open you up to criticism or judgment?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There are always going to be judgmental people, even if we were to just talk about stuff that everybody agrees on, which I don't even know what that would be, because people like to argue and disagree. So what could everyone agree on? Even if we only talked about those things, people would still judge us. Judgmental criticalness is very prevalent in our world. I don't think it serves. There is a time for being judgmental and critical, and that's when it serves. But going around being judgmental and critical, it doesn't serve a person's happiness, joy factor, even learning. If you think you know things, you're not really open to learn new things. So if people judge me, I think, well, that's unfortunate for them, because they're not open, and that's not as a pleasant a life when you're closed, and you don't learn as quickly. So the more open and accepting we are, the richer our life is. So I feel compassion for the judgmental, and I don't take their judgments on. That's about them, not me.
Freddie asked just now, has anyone ever said you are crazy?
Sure. Anybody that speaks up in this world, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a woman who has unusual experiences and has the courage to share them, those who want to control others, and that's what sexism is a desire to control women. So if you are a woman, as I am, who speaks up and speaks her truth, there will be people that use quite frankly, the laziest way to criticize someone and to try to shut them up is to call or discredit them. If we say something threatening to another person, that they can go there. And once again, that's about them, not about me. So I don't care.
Nice.
I haven't always been there. I used to be hurt by what people said. Even strangers sometimes could say things that hurt me. But pretty much now, I don't even think it's about me. I don't take it personal when people say unkind things, that's about their unhappiness, and I don't let it make me unhappy, because I don't wish bad upon them or anyone else, so I deserve to be happy.
Audrey asked, does exercise help us become more creative?
Exercise helps us be everything, including more creative. It's literally proven that moving the brain works better. So, you know, creative ideas happen in the brain, so of course it makes us more thoughts, more feelings, more connections, more ideas, more creative impulses, and discernment, and it makes us happier to move. So yeah, it's very good for creativity and happiness and health.
Sun's hitting you on the neck there. Are all artists introverts? Is a question by Cece.
Well, most art, I'm not going to say all art, but most art happens in a solitary place. If you're a painter, if you're a composer, if you're a musician, you can play with other people, but learning your instrument, writing can be very solid, a lot of solitude involved in creating. And sometimes there's cooperative creativity if you're an actor in a play, and so you are working with other people. But the introspective, contemplative type of person that I was born, who likes to ruminate on things and process things and observe things, has a good disposition for being creative, because it does require time alone. And if we enjoy that, we can perfect our medium, our instrument. So
Randall asked, can we be too creative, and are there times not to be creative?
there are times to be critical, like if you're in a dangerous situation, to assess the best way to keep yourself or others safe is not necessarily creative discernment of the environment and the threat. If you're trying to solve a critical problem, there are times where being critical is an asset, and discerning and totally logical. You know, if you can only reach down and, you know, save one person, you know, you might have to think, which person can I reach down and save as they're slipping down this cliff? And you might have to make a very rational, not creative decision. But even times like that, if you have access to your creativity flowing, you might realize, well, I could fall on my belly instead of reaching down to save one person, and then I've got two arms that, or, oh, there's a branch, I could hold that over and all three people could grab it. So even dire situations, sometimes critical thinking is not enough. So I say, you know, have a critical part of your brain engaged and at the ready, and then the creative part, whenever you need it, at the ready, and balance it as best you can. And I think they're doing a lot of research about right brain, left brain, and, you know, the more, yeah, we have natural propensities, but the more we experience the other side, the more balanced we are, the more access we have to problem-solving abilities. So be creative and critical, and there's a time for one and a time for other, and there's some times where both are necessary.
What are the positive and negative aspects of being creative? Asked Cora.
Well, you know, I've talked a lot about if we express our emotions, and creativity can be a way to do it respectfully and inexpensively. Anybody has access to it. It stimulates our immune system, so it's healing. If we use our creativity, we can enhance our lives, our environments, our diet, our even forms of exercise. Um, there's so many life enhancing attributes to being creative that we can offer ourselves and others and society in general. And downsides, if you can't be logical, if you're only creative, if you can't be critical, if you're only creative, that can be real problematic. Artists can be relegated to the airhead. Their feet aren't on the ground. They're living up in the clouds, and that can happen to anyone where you're not grounded. And but grounded, logical. My publisher friend calls me the practical mystic, because I grew up in a lot of difficult situation, and I ended up taking in my mother and my two nephews, and but I've always been an artist, and I've always had to create to feel good, be happy. So I had to be very practical as well, and perhaps that's just been a blessing that I had to be practical, but I am artistically inclined, and so I've had to work with both sides, and I highly suggest that for everybody.
Marvin, why are artists put down or put on a pedestal?
Yeah, I just spoke about that artists can either be like they're special and different and better than, or they're not they're not practical, real, problem-solving, rational people. And truly, artists are just people who choose to use their time creatively, and some talk about it more than they do it. Some do it but never share it. Some do it in many different ways. Some do it in one way and become really excellent at that one way. But they're just people using their time, energy to have creative expression in their life. And they can be airheads, or they can be visionary. They can be practical, or they can be dysfunctional, just like every other type of person. So an artist is a person, and their life, their work should only be observed for what it is, not the category it falls into.
And Tina asked, what is your primary art tool?
I am my primary art tool, my body. Dance was my first creative expression, because I didn't need anything else, and I didn't have anything else. And then designing in the environment I was in, which was nature, is where I was free with whatever was around me. So I we're all our primary art tool. Our thoughts, our feelings, our inspiration, and what else we use is our choice. And hopefully we have lots to choose from, but if we don't, we always have us.
Do you prefer pen, pencil, or paint? Is a question by Patrick. Prefer pen, pencil, or paint, Patrick?
I love alliteration, so thanks, Patrick. It depends on the moment. I actually started visual art with Sumi brush, Sumi ink in the Suzuri, because it was so meditative, and it was like a meditation for me instead of actually doing art. But that was my first visual art. And then the next was pen and ink. And it was quite a while before I even went to a pencil, which is normally where people start, and I see the logic in that. But that's not the way it happened for me. And I did black and white, Sumi ink, pen and ink, black and white for a long time, and then graphite pencil. And my 10-year-old that was living with me at the time one day said, "It's time for color." And I had gotten a gift of colored pencils, and I really wanted to understand black and white before moving to color, and she was just like, "It's time for color." And I'm really glad she did. And she answered the door and said, "She can't talk to you now, she's doing color," and answered the phone, and "You'll have to call back because she's doing color." And she was very insistent. And I thought, okay, you know, and I started color, and that was a great idea. So I love all tools. Whatever I have to work with is good enough. So how are we doing for time? We're there.
Yep.
Well, thank you. This hour flew by like usual, and I want to thank every one of you for being here. I feel you, and it feels great to connect with you through these virtual visits. And as I said, I'm going to be putting up a blog post video today. I included it in this on the how to write and publish your own work, and from the next 9 days till the end of the month, I'll be putting one up a day. And thank you for being here, and to the Minnesota State Arts Board for awarding me the grant to do these live reads and to put up these blog posts about how to, you know, believe in yourself, figure out what you want to write. Tomorrow the blog post will be what to write. Today it was about why write, and it'll go all the way to self-publishing. And thanks again to Perfect Duluth Day for the article. I really appreciate that. And you can see that on my profile or on incandescencebook.com. Come back at 4 for Bodhi's reading from his sci-fi thriller, Northport 1999. And you can see his videos on his YouTube channel, Bodhi the Movie Maker. You can see all my live reads on my YouTube channel as The Creativity Show. Please tell anyone you think would enjoy it that they can go there to see our recorded videos, and they can come back to see us next Saturday at 2 and at 4, and check out these blog posts about how to share your work, figure out what you want to write, how to organize your life to do it, and self-publish. So meanwhile, stay curious and stay creative.
All right, yay. Okie dokie. Thanks for the questions, everybody.
Thank you, great questions.
If we missed any questions, we'll address them next week. Alrighty, I'm gonna end the video.
Bye-bye.
Bye Facebook, ending now. Bye-bye Instagram, ending now. Bye-bye YouTube.